Sooner Nation. We thought, you know what? We've gone through so much crap here in the last probably, crap, yes, start of football season. You get us twice this week because there is just too much crap to complain about. So me and Steve thought we'd get on and
Little
tackle.
Sooners Festivus, even though we are, even though we are well past the Christmas season. Um, you know, uh, it is time to pass around the aluminum pole and tell us the ways in which we have disappointed one, in the ways in which Oklahoma athletics disappointed us this year. And so that's kind of what today's is a little bit of a cleansing of all the negativity and just general bullcrap that we've been putting up with here for the last year. So Jeremy, go ahead. I'll let you
I,
start
I've
first.
I've threatened this pod since Saturday night. I think I text Steve and I go, emergency pod tonight, and Steve's exact words were, "This team doesn't deserve emergency pod," which
Yeah,
is true.
and truth be told, I was watching the end of Cobra Kai, so that is something that does bring me joy. Cobra Kai never dies,
And
and
let me ask you this: when you watch that, because I'm right there with you, it does not surprise me one bit knowing you that you are a Cobra Kai fan. Watching this, thinking this is by far one of the stupidest series I've ever seen because nobody's life consists like your life and death consist of karate, but that's what Cobra Kai is. But I watched.
hey, look, I'll handle Porter Moser besmirchment, Joe Castiglione besmirchment, Brent Venables besmirchment. We will not be besmirching Cobra Kai here. It was really close to divorce in the Goss household on Saturday night. My wife thought, hashtag spoiler alerts if anyone hasn't seen the last 5 episodes, but when Kreese blew up Terry Silver's yacht and they both went down. Aaron said that was too much over the top. I'm like, Aaron, literally, this show is over the top. This is two guys in their 60s all the time, kicking each other in the face. So, but that was the point too far for my wife. But no, as far as those got 10s on IMDb from Goss all the way across. So,
God,
good.
I love it. I'm sorry I got
Yeah.
off. I'm just like
Yeah.
me and Steve have known each other for a long time, and nothing surprises me more that me and him were just embedded in Cobra Kai. So
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, that's the important stuff.
I did see just because we just got off a little bit here. I saw one of our friends, Ryan Eller, yesterday, and he said to let us know that he loves our podcast. And it sounds like two guys, buddies, just telling stories. I go, well, you better hope to God this podcast never consists of us just telling stories
Yeah.
because the
Well, we
30
would
minutes,
have to change
30
our
minute
rating. This might not be as kid friendly going forward. But shout
the 30
out to Rhino, to Eller there. So glad. Thanks for the listen, buddy. Thanks for the follow and the subscription and all that fun stuff.
Okay, so sorry, I got off kilter there. I'm just like, hey, let's start telling stories. Let's not talk all bad our sports lives are going. But I thought about Saturday night,
Hey,
and
we may get better viewership with the way OU Athletics is going, doing a podcast episode review of Cobra Kai than we would talking about Sooner Athletics right now. But
yeah,
anyway, sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
I can promise you, my wife does not want to listen to me do a Cobra Kai breakdown. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was watching that game Saturday night. And I said our last pod, I go, so after we lose two, because everybody just assumed, even I listened to the Cedar Scoop guys before Saturday's game. They're like, well, we're going to win Saturday. And I just never, ever thought anytime that it was a guarantee because I've watched us play. And, guys, there's so many things to point at. It all goes back to, like me and Steve said in the past, winners win, losers lose. Look at Patty Gasso, what she does, and look at what Porter Moser does.
Still undefeated, by the way. Perfect game against, what was Baylor, number 23, something like that. Hitting yaks, throwing perfect games. What winners do, man. They bring in
Not,
talent and they win. It's amazing how
not
that
to
works.
mention, we went 4-0 and run rolled all 4 games this weekend. So I think what's scary for everybody else in the softball world is I think they're figuring it out.
Yeah, I
I
know.
Ella Parker hit a shade under 700. So,
Yeah.
but but the mistakes that we made, and I said this in our friend text group after the game Saturday night, I said it almost looked like we were purposely trying to lose this game. And I looked at Joe Lenardi's bracketology today. We are still the last four in. I don't understand how. Um, I do feel bad for some of the like Forsythe. I feel bad for him. Um, he's
Well,
playing a
here's
lot
the
better
deal about
role.
getting too attached to anybody on this OU roster. This has been the Porter Moser experience. Don't.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a little exercise for everybody. Okay. You tell me our current 8-man rotation against this 8-man rotation. Okay. Who we've got, and they're going to play a team that has Milos Uzan, Otega Owe, Caden Cooper, Javion McCullum, John Hughley, Bijan Cortez, CJ Noland, and Jalen Hill. Because those are all former Sooner players who are playing this year somewhere else. We get beat by 15. Our current team does. I mean, Owe's averaging 16 a game at Kentucky. Uzan's averaging 10 a game at Houston. And, Kelvin comes out and says, he hits a game winner, a big shot for them. Kelvin comes out and talks about how he's the most skilled player that he's brought in. Caden Cooper's averaging 10 points a game at La Tech. Javion McCollum's averaging 12 points a game at Georgia Tech. CJ Noland's averaging 8 points a game for 22-4 New Mexico. Jalen Hill, 7 points a game for UNLV. Bijan, 4 points for Wichita State. And Hughley, 3 points for Xavier.
It's a bad look for Porter Moser because
it just is. And
I mean, and Kelvin's, his statement was I don't think he meant it to be a shot at Porter,
but it
was.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's something that I've noticed a lot. And coaching is hard. I mean, Steve can tell you he's done it in high school. I've coached my younger kids now, about to be 14-year-olds. You have to figure out what motivates each kid. And it seems like Porter has a lot of tough love for these kids, but he's not building these relationships because everybody's leaving. Jalen Moore is literally the only guy that's stuck around after his year.
No, that's it.
And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Obviously, I think they could win out. I really don't think it's going to save Porter's job. It wouldn't surprise me if we got beat by 40 in Gainesville on that. Or when is it, Tuesday night or Wednesday night? I don't even know. Who cares?
Yeah.
Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
Dad, nobody's listening. But, I mean, the frustrating thing, guys, is, and I mean, look, we all wanted this to work with Porter Moser. Jeremy and I have said that, but we got the Porter Moser that we got is the same Porter Moser that made 0 NCAA tournaments at Arkansas Little Rock, made 0 NCAA tournaments as a coach at Illinois State, made 0 NCAA tournaments at Loyola Chicago until he got one good group. He had one good group. The Krutwig kid was a big recruit. Chicagoland brought him in. They made a Final Four. But let's just not forget that group went Final Four, missed the tournament, no tournament, and then he made the Sweet 16 his last year before he came to OU with what was left of that team. I mean, that Porter Moser, even at his time at Loyola Chicago, which was his best of his previous head coaching experience, was 500 in conference play. He was 89-89 in conference play at Loyola Chicago. At Illinois State, he was 22-50 in conference play. Okay. At Arkansas Little Rock, he was 25-19. So this is a guy who I like Porter. Porter's a good basketball coach, but Porter should not be the head coach of University of Oklahoma. Let me give you a little bit of homework stats that I did on our previous coaches. Lon Kruger was here for 10 seasons. He made 8 NCAAs. He made a Final Four, and he made a Sweet 16. Jeff Capel, who we all deemed a failure, was here for 5 seasons, made 2 NCAAs, made an Elite 8. Kelvin Sampson, 12 seasons, 11 NCAAs, a Final Four, an Elite 8, and 2 Sweet 16s. Billy Tubbs, 14 seasons, 10 NCAAs, a Final Four, an Elite 8, 3 Sweet 16s. Dave Bliss, and we're not talking about, we're not excusing any murder charges at Baylor. That's not what we're going into here. But Dave Bliss, yes, that same Dave Bliss was the coach before Billy Tubbs. In 5 seasons, he made a Sweet 16. We have to go back to Joe Ramsey, who was the OU's head coach in 74-75, to the last OU head basketball coach who did not make the NCAA tournament. He's got to go.
Yeah.
He's got to go. I don't care about the buyout. I don't care about any of that stuff. It's over. It's over. I like Porter Moser. Porter Moser is a bad fit. Fit is important in hiring. We hired a guy from the Midwest whose recruiting ties are to the Midwest to go coach in the Southeastern Conference. And that's just not getting it done. It's just not. And, I've got some more things to go on this, but I don't want to monopolize all the time on here. But when you go back to the coaches in the 70s being the last person that didn't make the NCAA tournament, it's just time to go. It just is.
Yep.
And we're not making the NCAA tournament, guys. We've got to win at least 3 more games. I mean, realistically, we got to win 4 more games. We're not getting in with 19 wins. I know it's kind of a soft bubble, but we've played this game before. We're not getting in with 19 wins. We've got to get in with 20 wins, okay? But here's the deal. We've already got 9 losses, okay? And last year we were 20-12. We didn't get in. What was the best conference of basketball last year? The Big 12 was. And we went 20-12. We went 8-10 in that conference. Did we get in? No. So we're not getting in this year. I know it's an historically great conference. It doesn't matter. Unless we, Space Jam, as we go to drive to Oklahoma City and Space Jam the Thunder's talent, we are not going to make the NCAA tournament. It's not going to happen.
Well, and look at, you're talking about past coaches, look at, I bunch up these coaches as Kelvin and Lon are the 2 best coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kelvin, you look at who are the best players that Kelvin had. You look at Hollis Price, Quantas White, that group, they're the one he took to the Final Four. What was Lon's group? Buddy Hield, Cousins, that group, Spangler and them. What happened? He developed them to that game. When Hollis Price came to OU, were they like, man, finally we get one of the best recruits in the history of OU basketball? No. But also, too, with Lon, you look at Trae Young. Trae Young is a generational talent, but he switched his coaching to try to basically make Trae Young better instead of being the team. That's how Buddy Hield's teams were. Buddy Hield's the same way. When he came in, he was not considered one of the highest recruits in the nation. Now, Capel, who'd he have? Blake Griffin. Who does Porter Moser have? Jeremiah Fears.
I mean, guys, Jeremiah Fears is still projected to go in the lottery. I mean, even though I don't particularly see it because I watch OU basketball, I mean, the people who get paid to know that stuff still see that. And we've got a lottery pick going through what we're doing.
Hey, I'm just going to say this, and we can bookmark it for later on next year. Fears won't go to the draft, I don't think. I think he'll come back and transfer, and he will be an All-American next year. Because that seems to be when people go to other schools, their talents come out. That is an issue with coaching.
Yeah, no. And the other issue is a lot of these really good teams. We talked about Trae Young. You mentioned Ryan Spangler, even though it came roundabout with Ryan on through a transfer. We're not getting the in-state talent. Okay, Dayton is the only really in-state kid that we have, and like the big talent that's coming in Oklahoma right now, best player instead of Oklahoma is Jalen Montnati, who is at Owasso. He is a high 4-star, top 20, top 30 player in the country in the class of 2026. Right now, everyone says he's going to go to Kansas. How Oklahoma basketball is good is we've got to get those kids. We got the Trae Youngs. We got the Blake Griffins. But you're looking at, we lost out on Brandon Garrison twice. Brandon Garrison was a 4-star kid, went to Dell City, then went to OSU, left OSU. Everyone thought we might get that kid. No, he ends up at Kentucky. We didn't get the Frederickson kid who was at Bixby here a few years ago. He's at Wake Forest. There's a kid in this class at Newcastle, 4-star kid. We offered. He's going to OSU. Okay, kid who was at Edmond North a couple of years ago. T.O. Barrett went to a prep school after he left Edmond North, but obviously had Oklahoma ties. That kid's at Missouri right now. If you're going to win in Oklahoma, you have got to get the best players in Oklahoma, and you've got to recruit the Dallas Metroplex. You have to do those things. And right now, we're not touching those things. We're not. And when you don't, that's your recruiting bed. And not hitting your recruiting bed, you're just not going to win. And you can talk about, and this was a big point on give the Sooner Scoop guys their credit. They talked a lot about, George did a lot of research here, I think, on, what our number is, whether we're 3.5 million, 4 million, wherever that is, and it's less than the average in the SEC. Okay, I mean, whatever. Okay, yes, you can throw more money at it and all that stuff, but you got to do better talent evaluation than what we've got. I mean, we were good to let those 8 guys I talk about walk and look at what we brought in. I mean, we're not upgrading. And the only reason we're in as good a position as we are is Fears reclassifying. If Fears doesn't reclassify, we're in a worse position than we are right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
and let me ask you this, and I thought about this on Saturday night after the game. What if Fears doesn't come here? Are we a different, I feel like we worry so much about getting Fears his touches and he goes one-on-one. We aren't running offense, so let's just get that out.
But we haven't ran offense at all since Porter's been here. Whether it was watching Grant Sherfield dribble down and shoot, watching Javion McCullum dribble down and shoot, it doesn't matter who it is. We don't believe in motions or sets. We don't. I mean, we just absolutely not. I was watching a little college basketball this weekend. One of my favorite guys is Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino is straight sleaze, but I absolutely love him. Okay. I mean, he is what he is. Sometimes
he is your Bobby Knight, and that's a story for another day.
Yeah. But but anyway, I'm watching Creighton play Louisville. I'm not Louisville. I'm sorry, St. John's. And St. John's full court pressure, putting it on, and just a simple inbound set of Creighton runs a guy kind of on the near sideline, guy reverse, comes around, comes off a double screen, they throw it long for a layup. We never do any of that kind of stuff, guys. We never run set pieces to get layups. We don't hurt people with motion. It's just like the last second shot that we got on Saturday. We all knew that Fears was going to dribble to his right hand and shoot a little push shot. And we all knew it wasn't going in. We knew that. Why in the world did we get in a hurry after? I mean, look, did Moore screw up fouling, giving the guy the 4-point play, and we're up 5? Absolutely. But as a basketball player, you've just got to be like, next play, we're on to the next thing. We hurriedly throw the ball in when the clock's not moving, and then we throw it to the absolute worst place you can go against a full court press, below the free throw line toward the corner. That's not where anybody on offense wants to take that basketball. You want the basketball centered, and what did we do? We got it. We held it. We looked. Our spacing, if there would have been a little bitty bomb, a little Mario-sized, bomb there to go off in the middle of the lane, it would have killed 3 Sooners, okay? Our spacing was garbage, and we just launched it right in the middle of everybody. And, of course, the other, LSU gets it. But there was no spacing. There was no structure to it, and we threw it quickly to the worst spot on the floor. And that's coaching. Some of that is coaching. It just is.
How are we surprised that they were pressing us too? You know what? They want the ball.
We're at 5. Quit. Please quit.
And now Moser did say in the post game that, we tell them, and this also goes back to coaching, tell them don't foul any shots, hands up, don't contest, and obviously didn't listen, and that's what I've always said about Porter Moser. we're not in his practices. We don't know. Maybe he goes through. I mean, I can tell you a bunch of sixth grade girls. I go through everything that we need to do in a game plan. And I can count on one hand how many times they do it. And
I mean, here's the deal, Jeremy. If this was year one, I would be less critical of this loss. I would. But this is year 4. It's the same argument we have with BV. Okay? Like, when we get, we run a heck of a fake punt and then we can't get the freaking playoff because he celebrated it too long, that's a problem. If that's year 1, that's not a big problem. Okay? We have to get that stuff ironed out. But this was year 3 for BV, so that's a problem. If we screw up the end in there of that, okay, yes. But the bad thing about Porter Moser teams is every year is year 1 because we don't carry people over. I mean, the only people we carried over, we did carry over Jalen Moore this year. And I mean, look, we carried over Sam Godwin and Luke Northweather, but let's be honest, we've watched SEC basketball. How many other SEC teams could those guys be getting minutes for at the 4 and the 5?
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's no shot against those guys. I appreciate those guys, but they're miscast. Okay, yeah. They are miscast.
They're not SEC big men. And
no, they're not.
That's really what goes back to how long have we known?
Well, they weren't Big 12 big men either. Remember what Houston would do to us and bully us, and what Kansas has done for us for years and bully us with that. I mean, even that's why we had trouble beating OSU, even when OSU wasn't very good. Guys, Porter Moser's never beaten Texas. That in and of itself is a fireable expense. Well, and Texas has the worst head coach it's ever had.
Well, and I understand too. Like last year, we get Hughley, and we thought Hughley was going to be that big man that could rough him up down low. He didn't pan out. And so like I understand they don't hit sometimes, but my whole thing is how long have to me, if you put me in Porter Moser's position, after probably the first or second year, or I know that I'm going to the SEC, I tell myself, where's our problem? Big men. We need a big man. We have to get a big man.
Well, look, here's the deal. I think the point was made on the Sooner Scoop pod, how much better is this team if Brandon Garrison is playing on it, who's on Kentucky. Okay, it is probably better. But I firmly do not believe, and look, maybe it's a bad example because if you give a person a chance to play basketball at Kentucky, where it's a religion, or play basketball at Oklahoma, where it's an afterthought, I understand that. But don't tell me that selection is just about, if we had another 500,000, maybe we get him. And maybe that is true. But you can't go from saying, okay, we didn't get Brandon Garrison to, guess we're rolling with Northweather and Godwin. Or Wagee. Guys, that's good gravy. That's like anyway. It's like a lot of things, but I'm not going to say it right now.
And here's the other thing, and I know I touch on this a lot. I get tired of I listen to Dari Noka after, and I understand he's a OU alum, attacking the OU fan base. OU fans are not the reason OU sucks in basketball. I was on and this is a shout out to her because she let me come on her show and talk OU basketball. She was like, I told her, I said, we can talk OU basketball. She goes, I don't follow it that much. And I was like, lucky you. But it's Sooner Girl Podcast. I'll be on her episode on Wednesday, so go check it out. So a little plug for you. But I told her, I said, we hear so much complaint about people not going to OU basketball games. And I basically said, it's a lot like if I owned a restaurant and I served crap food for 3 years, I probably can't complain that people aren't coming to my restaurant. And we have served crap food for the last 4 years now. And you cannot keep putting the same thing over and over again on the floor and expect people just to keep coming. Not to mention, when people do come to our games, we play the worst basketball that we could play. And I'm sorry, it's not a product that people are going to come look at and people want to watch. And our buddies the other day put a deal, because there was a deal on Twitter about OU baseball. And guys, this isn't any different than any other year. People don't go watch OU baseball. Unless it's OU football and OU softball, They they don't go watch it. I'm sorry. It's OU baseball has got a good team this year, but also too, you have to look at it this way. I know I'm going into the baseball rain a little bit.
That's all right.
We don't have the venue like baseball is probably of all the big sports is the one sport where people go for the stadium, for the field. And if you listen to one of our buddies is a high school baseball coach, he loves showing pictures of his field because he's worked hard on it. And that's what, honestly, that's what brings people there. People want a venue that they can be proud of. Eldale Mitchell is not that. You can put as much seating, you can put barbecue pits out there. It's not that. People aren't going to come to Eldale Mitchell for the field. They're going to come there for the product. And baseball is just not a sport that is out of OU, which we've won more national titles in baseball than we have in basketball, is not a sport that a lot of people call baseball that people go to, and not know you at least. So
Yeah.
I understand we weren't we know
And I
now we
mean,
were not
it,
prepared for
and
the
here's the
SEC.
deal. I mean, like, Eldale, I think, was built in the early 80s. Um, and this is something that I don't stand by don't get me wrong, it's been a great year of SEC basketball, but we left a really good basketball conference. Like, it's not shocking the level of basketball we're playing. We just need to play better. But the baseball is going to be different with this. Okay. I mean, it just is. SEC baseball is really going to be tougher. And there wasn't a whole lot of money dumped into Eldale. I do think there's been some, upgrades and amenity added. But I mean, our seating capacity is 3,000. Okay. So that's not a great amount of people as far as just the venue size. So that being said, I do think as we get into more revenue sharing, as we get into getting our full share from the SEC, I do think some money is going to be there. One thing, 100% without a doubt, I think we've got the right coach at baseball. I think Skip is the right guy to lead that team because it's kind of like we got to play a little bit of money ball in baseball. We got to be a little Tampa Rays kind of thing here, and if you don't have the money or the amenities to be equal with everybody and everything, what's the great equalizer in baseball? Pitching, right? So we've got a really good coach who's a really good pitching coach, and good pitching is going to keep you in games. It's going to keep us in games, and he's already shown he can make runs in the postseason. I'm not worried about baseball, but this is something that hopefully I think this is something to where I think what this is going to do is increase our chances for deeper runs. Now, will we lose some more games in regular season? Sure. But baseball's not a win every day, game. It's not. Neither is softball. Unfortunately, Patty has spoiled us on that. But you're going to lose some games. You want to go out and you want to win series. You want to stack winning series together. The midweek games, kind of depends on who you're throwing, that sort of thing, who you go play. But positive vibes for Sooner baseball. If you can go out and support, but like Jeremy says, we're not going to go have 11,000 people at a baseball game because we don't have an 11,000 seat stadium. When I went to the LSU football game this year, we parked out by the baseball stadium. Really cool. I actually shared some pictures with it in our friends group. Walking through there. But it's on a different level than we're at right now with Eldale, and so
Yeah,
that's just where we're
well,
at.
I think that's why I look at it and I say, were we prepared to come to the SEC? No, we weren't. Um, in venues like that. Now, the problem that we're having in our sports program right now at University of Oklahoma is we have went back to back with the two biggest revenue builder programs, OU football and OU basketball, men's basketball, and have had bad seasons. And so, who's that go back to? Joe C. And Joe C. To me, I'm sorry. Like I guess I remember him hiring Bob Stoops. I remembering him hiring Lon Kruger. Uh, I don't think he's a bad AD. Now, do I think he's in over his head on some of this stuff? I do, because I think there's a lot of change in college sports. And he is in over his head. Do I think he can be successful? Yes, I do. Do I think
Well,
he's going to get a chance?
here's
No.
how I look at Joe C. Has Joe C been an awesome athletic director for University of Oklahoma? 100%. Okay, and he has proven he can be a great like peacetime consigliere. In other words, when things are going well, when we're the top dog, when we're there, can he do that? Do we do things the right way? Do we stay off proback? Yes, he's awesome at all those things. But right now, we are in a chaotic war time. Okay, and we need a commander in chief of our athletic program who is willing and able to get their hands dirty. Okay, I mentioned Rick Pitino a while ago. I'm not advocating for Coach Pitino to come and be our AD, but at the same time, we've got to be willing to play the ball game, and that goes into. Before we get off here, Jeremy and I are going to throw some names at you for different basketball coaches, and do I think Joe C would hire Will Wade? No, I don't. Do I think it's stupid that he wouldn't? Yeah, I do. Okay, Will Wade
Hey, we
got
might need some weed to get it going,
yeah,
but I mean,
yeah, maybe whatever. But Will Wade got fired at LSU for violations that are legal now. Okay, so I mean, there's got to be some, some just the ends have to justify the means, and that's
hey,
just
not to
where we've got
mention
to get with this.
we fired or I don't know, we know so much. We pushed him out to one of our basketball coaches that is almost laughable. The offense that he had, he made too many phone calls and too many
Yeah,
text messages.
yeah,
I mean, if you look at that now, people would laugh that we were even like. I bring my brother up in this because my brother hated Kelvin Sampson for a long time because he's just a cheater. Uh, I would give my right arm right now to have Kelvin Sampson, but this goes back to like when we start talking about coaches here. Who wants to come to this right now? We're in a dire like we have to hire a big name, but what big name wants to come to this
well, we
now?
just got to hit, Jeremy. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
deal. There's good coaches out there, and we are not a have not. I mean, like, we are not one of those places to where we won't support. We don't have money. We do. Now, are we going to have the same money as Texas or Texas A&M? No, we're not. Are we going to have, the same, like you said, baseball facilities as LSU? No, we're not. Are we going to go be able to spend, dollar for dollar on a basketball roster like Kentucky? No, we're not. But we will spend money to be competitive. I know we will. Okay. That's what we have to. When you're in a situation like us, Oklahoma's a chip on their shoulder state. We're a chip on their shoulder university. We've got to get a chip on their shoulder coach who's going to be like, hell yes, we're at Oklahoma, and hell yes, we're going to win. And we've got to go find that cat. And the thing I do appreciate, I mean, and I even think Porter's like this a little bit too. Um, you know, I do think, there is some grit and determination to those guys, but we've got to be able to go get players, keep players, and go win. So, going into that, Jeremy, let's just talk a little bit about, you give me 3 or 4 names, I'll give you 2 or 3 names, and let's talk a little about who we do think is next for the basketball job.
You've mentioned his name a lot, and it's a pipe dream. My first name I'm going to throw out is Rick Pitino or his son,
Yeah.
either one, because his son's not a horrible basketball coach either. It's almost like he's related to him.
Yeah, 22-4 at New Mexico right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then my next 2 are OU alums, and I think if we hired him, the reason that we would hire him, it's a bold move to make it, but it might bring some excitement to the boosters, and also too might be something that these guys want to come to. Quantas White or Kellen Sampson are the other 2 that I think of. Now that said, I would lean more to Quantas just because I feel like he's done it a little bit longer and he's more set to be a head coach. But I think those those two guys are probably geared more to start at a smaller school before they come to OU. But that said, it's like that might be where we need to go because of the just sheer like trying to bring excitement to the program, and also too get guys in there that are coaching because they love Oklahoma. But
Yeah.
I mean, but I look at Patino and I think I'm amazed at that guy. And same thing with Calipari. Like Calipari can get what he wants. I know he's had problems with Arkansas and stuff like that, but you can't tell me Calipari's not going to probably build a winner at Arkansas. He
Because they're
is.
going to, I mean, like, they're going to, I mean, you go to the rival. When I was doing a little research here on griping about Porter not getting in state people, I was looking at current recruiting rankings, and guess who's recruiting pretty well? Arkansas,
Who would have thought?
shocker.com. And, you know, it's a different world of basketball now. Matter of fact, I saw a quote from Patino, and he was talking about recruiting. And he just said, yeah, we're probably not going to take any high school guys this year because we're losing too much off of our main roster. And I mean, and that's a different, you know, that's a different way of looking at it. But you have to have coaches who understand that. I mean, like Patino's going to be a wonder, you know, could be a freaking 1 seed this year at St. John's. And, you know, but if I'm going to throw some names at you, one just kind of, this is just a personal preference thing. Chris Mack, who used to be the coach at Xavier, who's now at the College of Charleston, is a really, really, really good coach. Think he would be somebody that's kind of a little bit cheaper. That's a really good X's and O's guys, could understand some transfer portal stuff. Think he would be an interesting watch. Chris Crutchfield, who I think the Sooner Soups guys mentioned, who's at Omaha.
Exactly. If you told me to put 4, the Crutchfield would have been my 4th. Because people don't realize that he recruited Hollis Price.
And I mean, and that's one of those. He has a relationship with that family. His kids. I coached against his son when he was at Norman North. Matter of fact, kind of a fun short story. I went to a basketball game at Cameron Indoor. Took my nephew and my dad a few years ago, back when Zion Williamson was playing at Duke, and they were playing Stetson is who they were playing, and Crutchfield's son was actually playing for Stetson at that time, someone I'd coached against back when I was coaching. But I tell you that because there is a relationship there. We're talking about buyout, and we're spending that money. If we go penny pinching, which there's a possibility that it goes that way, I could definitely see Crutchfield. I mean, this is the job he's going to take. It's not like some of these people that are hot names and we're going to have to fight for. I mean, other people are going to try to hire Will Wade. Okay, that's one of those things that it's just going to happen. Okay, you know, other people are going to try to hire. You know, somebody like, the coach at Stanford, I think Bucky McMillan is his name, and they've been really good. They get up and down, they play fast. There's quite a few jobs already open. Okay, you've got the Florida State jobs already open, the Virginia jobs already open, the Indiana jobs already open. And I don't think we're swimming in the exact same pool as those guys, but some of these bigger names are going to be people that are coveted by multiple different people. I mean, I think Richard Pitino would be a good hire. He's been at Minnesota. He's been at a power, 4 or 5 school. My only concern with that is, is the South, but he's also been an assistant he was his dad's assistant at Louisville. He was an assistant at Florida. We've got to get people with ties to the South or ties to Texas. We just do. Because if we don't have that and we don't recruit that area, we're going to continue to suck.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were talking about with the, I look at it. Do you remember when we hired Lon Kruger?
It was out of the blue. It's like, whoa, Lon Kruger.
Lon Kruger? Lon Kruger wants to come here? That was like my first mindset. Like, and guys, when we got Porter Moser, we got Brent Venables. Do we remember the excitement we were as a fan base?
Those weren't bad hires at the time. Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. They just didn't hit. And
I mean, have I made as a high school AD, have I made some bad hires? Yes. And it's not because those guys that I hired were bad coaches. Sometimes it's a fit thing. You don't know fit until they're there. You don't know that. You don't know how it's going to work out. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
were we the only people who thought Brent Venables was going to be a really good head football coach? No, we weren't. Auburn tried to hire him a year or two before. Auburn's a really good job.
Yeah.
Porter Moser is probably the most sought after person in that cycle, and we went and got him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's my whole thing is like I think we forget sometimes that like these guys I remember. Do you remember when Brent Venables' plane landed in Norman, Oklahoma? The amount of people there, like
yeah,
guys, if we'd have hired Dan Lanning, I would have been upset. I wanted Brent Venables. That's me coming out as my OU fandom. I wanted Venables. I didn't want Dan Lanning. Now hindsight 2020, Dan
yeah,
Lanning fits SEC football. Brent
yeah,
Venables doesn't.
yeah.
Now, not to say that we can't go out this year and have a great season in college football. Not saying that. My problem that we're having in football and basketball is the ways that we lose can probably cost these guys their job. If Porter Moser, let's just say we lose against LSU, but we didn't get blown out by an average score of 23 points the last 3 games. Are we talking different? I don't know. But it's just the
Okay,
way that
it's
we
like
lose
this, Jeremy.
basketball games.
Let's look at the
So,
Sooner women. I think they're like 19-6, something like that. Okay, but they've lost games. Okay, they've lost games. I think they're ranked 17th in the country, something like that. There's been some disappointing losses there. Had a game we really should have won against Texas. Came out really slow down at LSU. Lost that game. Lost a close game at home to Kentucky, who's a top 12, 14 team. And we got boat raced at South Carolina. We did. But you know what? Jenny's competitive in almost all those games. We're not the only team that got boat raced at South Carolina. But that's what we expect with Sooner basketball. I went through earlier the success that all these other coaches had. That's what we expect. We don't expect Final Fours every year. Okay? Remember when everyone thought Mark Pope was awesome a month ago? Mark Pope's not so awesome now at Kentucky, is he? Okay? Because they lost again this weekend to Texas. So now, the Wolves are howling, so to speak, over there on them. That's not the Sooner fan base in basketball. It is in football. But we want relevance. And like Jeremy said, we want to be competitive. And we're not relevant and we're not competitive. And 4 straight years of not making a NCAA tournament, that's absolutely, totally unacceptable. We cannot do that at Oklahoma. That's not who we are. We're probably the best program ever that's never won a national championship. If you don't think so,
well,
spend some time doing research.
and it goes
I
back to
still
like,
hate you, Danny Manning.
well, it goes back to what I was just saying. Like, it's the ways we lose. That's why I said when we were talking about Brent Venables, a lot of times I say we could probably go 8-4 and he could still lose his job. It just depends how we lose games. If we
Right.
lose a game like we did against Missouri, where it's just stupid, fumbles, stupid turnovers, stupid clock management, then he could still lose his job going 8-4, 9-3, just depending on the ways we lose because we we hold football to a higher standard than we do
And
basketball.
it's optics
Basketball,
too,
you don't
Jeremy.
have to
I
do
mean,
that.
like, it's optics. I mean, like, we can't continue to look like if we tell Porter Moser, oh, that's okay, we had bad luck again, and we hire him back. I mean, like, what are we telling the basketball program? We don't care. We
Yeah.
don't care. We don't care. And that's not what it is. And I don't think Joe C's an I don't care guy. I don't. I think Joe C cares. I do. And I hope it works out with Joe C the same way I hope it works out. I hope it works out with Brent, and I hope it would have worked out with Porter. To me, we're past that point.
I think
Now, I'm
we're
not
past that.
meaning fire him now. I don't mean that. I mean, finish out the season, obviously. There's no
I
point for
mean,
Ryan Humphrey to be the coach for the rest of the year or something like
hon-
that.
honestly, like to me, and OU Sports, and I said this on the podcast that was that Single Girl podcast the other day. I go, I used to not be like this. I used to not be the fire coaches and stuff like that. But like, if you look at Twitter, the guys have supported Porter Moser all season and think, why do you guys want to get rid of him? They have after Saturday night, they have all one guy who I have literally put stats out to him about Porter Moser put a deal on Twitter that said he has to go and he has to go tonight. I'm done backing him. And so I look at it and I'm just like, well, I don't know. There's just so many things that you look at and you say something's got to change, and I wouldn't be so upset if it changed overnight. So I just, it's so frustrating to watch what OU basketball has become, and
And
that's
I do
why.
want to give a shout out. We did ask last week to some of our listeners to throw out some names, and I do want to throw out a few of those names that were sent to us. Buzz Williams, would love for that to happen. I do think that ship has sailed. Kind of the same thing with Grant McCaslin.
Mm,
If Jerome Tang was really on the hot seat at K State, but I do think they've rebounded a little bit. Wouldn't be opposed to that. Once again, those are Texas ties, all those guys. So, those would be good hires. Tad Boyle, Greg McDermott. I think those are really good coaches, but I don't really know that they would come and be in this. I think those are some good names that were thrown our way. But I really think it's probably going to be somebody who's a little more either of a retread or a younger person. That's just kind of where I think it's going to be. If you were to ask me right now who I think it was going to be, I tell you probably Chris Crutchfield
yeah,
is probably where I think that would be. And nothing against Crutch. I think he's a good coach. I don't think that's what we need. If Stephen Goss was in charge, who would I hire? Probably Richard Pitino.
hmm
Just for the simple fact of I think we need a little more grease in in our cooking right now, and would love to see somebody like that who could go toe to toe for the portal, and have that understanding.
and
That would be where I'm at.
Patino's the name Patino is going to hold a lot of water. And like you said, nothing against Crutch, but I guarantee you, when it happens, our fan base is going to be like, we don't care, guys. We are spending the money, but you got to realize that guys are making business decisions now in college sports. So, like the football team, you look at it, what side of the ball are we getting the big names? Defense. Because who wouldn't want to go play for Brent Venables, one of the best defensive minds? But we have to prove something on offense. Same thing in basketball. They ain't seen our name in the bracket in the last 3 years and going to be the fourth year after
I
this
mean, here's
year.
the deal. Jeremy and I love college basketball. I still watch a lot of college basketball, probably more than I should. But the product is not what it used to be. And really, college basketball right now is a 1 month season to most of the national deal. Here's the deal. When Jeremy and I put out these videos and it's titled about basketball, we get about a third of the viewers is when we title it something about football. That's just, it is what it is. Jeremy and I are passionate about it, so we're going to put that out there, but that's just the truth. And understand, if we're not playing in that 1 month that matters, we might as well not play it. And, that's why this is just, it's where we're at. And, maybe we're coming back on here later on this week or next week with some miraculous turnaround, but I just don't see it. I think the ship has sailed. As a former coach, as a person who does have to make decisions on a different scale, I hate calling for people's job, but it's just time. Sometimes divorce is the best option, and that's where we're at right now. Divorce is the best option. Porter has to go. As far as the names, we'll still talk about this going forward. So if you've got some different names, some names to throw out there that maybe Jeremy and I didn't hit on, and I'll just comment on the first thing I would do is I'd make sure Kelvin didn't want to just come back home.
Yeah.
I would make Kelvin tell me no. And if it was a deal where Kelvin said, yeah, I'll come, but only if you make Kellen my head coach in waiting, I would make that trade-off. Because guess what? Even if my hand was behind my back and I changed my mind at the end of it, or I had to deal with the year of Kellen and it was bad, or a year or two, I know I'd get good years with Kelvin before. That would be my first call. And then after that, I would probably go, Richard Pitino would be a good one. I'm a big Chris Mack guy. I think he's just a really, really good basketball coach. Also, there's different people out there. I would be good with Will Wade, obviously, as well.
But those are just kind of my short list before we sign off here. Jeremy, what's your short list before we
I'm
sign
glad you
off?
mentioned that because I'm the same way. Like Kelvin's got to tell me no. You can't listen to Kelvin Sampson talk about Oklahoma and how emotional he gets and not know that that place doesn't hold a special spot in his heart. Not to say Houston doesn't. He's been in Houston for a long time, not just college, but NBA as well. Kelvin, I think sometimes it's just like a scorned lover. You let him leave sometimes, and you realize you didn't realize how good you had it. And I think that Kelvin Sampson, to me, is one of the best college basketball coaches coaching right now. The guy just he gets it. He's a good recruiter. Guys love playing for him. If you look at his bench, he's got all former players that play for him or coach for him. So he would have to tell me no. I'm like you said, Patino's got to be up there. I like Crutchfield. He is my guy. But like you said, I just I think if that's what he requests that Kellen be the coach in waiting, I think that would be good for Kellen as well because Kellen can get acclimated to get ready and get prepared because I don't know how much longer Kelvin's going to do it. But you can't tell me that our fan base wouldn't be jacked up if Kelvin Sampson came
Another
back.
name I wouldn't mind either is Bryce Drew, who's at Grand Canyon. You know, his brother's the coach at Baylor. Bryce Drew hit a pretty big shot in Oklahoma City back quite a few years ago. For those of you Sooner fans of our age, we saw that happen either in person or on TV.
Unbelievable play call too.
Yep. Put that in every team I ever coached, guys. That was in there. Valpo was in there every team I ever coached. So, that's another name I wouldn't mind being considered as we get there. But that's just another name I wanted to throw out there.
No, I agree. But I put it on Twitter about anybody who has some coaching ideas. Comment on this video as well. We'll talk about a little bit more about it on Wednesday. But we just want to get on and do this podcast because, as you see, we're approaching 55 minutes on this pod. That shows you like there's just too much stuff to complain about and talk about that we had to bring in. Like we share. I don't know if I've recorded this part of what I'm about to say before, but I know we've talked to Eric before. I don't get on any sites or subscribe to any sites, not because I don't respect what those guys do, but we are a fan based podcast. Like everything that we talk about is our opinion. So I don't ever want people to think like I go on. I know that anytime I talk about Senior Scoop, I always mention them because that's the guys I listen to the most. But we've had Parker on here, we've had Matt Blackwell on there. There's some wars going on right now, but with the insiders,
we're neutral. We're Switzerland in that great war.
Yes, we are. But that said, it's like that's one thing that we've always tried to bring to this podcast is anything you hear from us, we're fans just like you guys. Like when we talk about stuff, we are passionate because we love Oklahoma. Like any sport they play, if they can play underwater BB stacking, and if OU was doing it, I'd want OU to win it. So it's just
not an official sport, but speaking of OU winning, gloves off in the OU UCO hockey friendly. It was kind of like USA Canada, as our friend Darren says, only real sport left. Yeah. So not an officially affiliated. I think that's at the club level, but gloves off in little OU UCO hockey hate.
But yeah, guys, but comment on this video, reply back to my Twitter reply. If you got any other coaches that you can think of, shout out to Harry for giving us some names on there as well. And we'll try to touch on them on Wednesday night if there's any new names. But subscribe to our channel, like Steve said. I know it's not football season, so we don't have the followers as we usually do. But subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Apple and Spotify. We've got some big names that we're working on getting in. Softball, baseball is going to start ramping up, and we'll get a little bit more of that. Steve's kind of, told about a guy we're trying to get on here for baseball. I think would be an awesome guy that you guys want to listen to. So follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, And just it doesn't cost you a dime to subscribe to us on YouTube. But boy, we sure get tickled pink. We're at 85 right now. So 15 off of 100. I want to hit that 100 spot before the end of basketball season if we can. So,
yep.
Steve, you got anything
And
else
we
to
appreciate it. Soonercast@gmail.com. If you've got anything you want to talk to us personally, your sponsorships, all that stuff, Jeremy and I'd love to make this even better for you. Have a great rest of your week. Stay warm out there, ice and snow. Maybe you're listening to this because you're out shoveling your driveway off or something like that, or making a commute that's normally an hour into 2 hours, which is about how long Jeremy and I could talk about Sooner basketball, but we won't. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Boomer.
Boomer Sooner.